October 7th, 2023, a day that changed the course of Israel's modern history. While the world was busy watching ongoing conflicts between Israel and Palestine, an even deadlier plot was in motion, one that no one saw coming. It began with a 9-year-old girl, Fatima, innocently handing a pager to her father. Just seconds later, a violent blast ripped through the air. In an instant, Fatima's life was taken. This was no random explosion. This was part of a sophisticated plan, one that would unravel deep within the heart of the Israel-Hezbollah conflict. You see, this wasn't just a terrorist attack. It was the result of years of intelligence gathering, cyber warfare, and a lethal strategy devised by Israel's most advanced intelligence unit, A200, also known as Unit 8200. They had turned something as ordinary as a pager into a deadly weapon. But why a pager? How did this simple communication device, long considered outdated, become the tool for one of the most sophisticated attacks in the Middle East? To understand that, we need to go back to the start of the conflict, when technology and warfare began to merge in ways the world had never seen before. To understand how this deadly plan unfolded, we first need to look at Hezbollah, a powerful military and political organization backed by Iran. In the years leading up to this event, Hezbollah had established a stronghold in southern Lebanon. Their influence was undeniable, and their alliance with Hamas made them a serious threat to Israel. Hezbollah wasn't just an ordinary militia group. They had advanced weaponry, political backing, and perhaps most importantly, sophisticated communication networks. They used everything from encrypted mobile phones to pagers, but it was these pagers that would unknowingly become the tool of their own destruction. Why pagers? In a world dominated by smartphones and encrypted apps, pagers might seem like an odd choice. But for Hezbollah, pagers offered a level of security that mobile phones couldn't. Mobile phones could be traced using GPS, Wi-Fi, and SIM cards. Pagers, on the other hand, operated using RF technology, radio frequency. It was nearly impossible to track a pager's location, making it the perfect tool for secure, anonymous communication. However, what Hezbollah didn't know was that their reliance on these pagers would soon become their downfall. Israel's intelligence unit, A200, had been watching closely. They saw an opportunity to turn Hezbollah's secure network into a ticking time bomb. And that's exactly what they did. But how did Israel manage to infiltrate this seemingly untraceable system? How did they turn simple pagers into weapons? The answer lies in one of the most advanced cyber espionage operations ever conducted. And it all started when Unit 8200 made their first move. Israel's Unit 8200 is no stranger to high-stakes operations. Known for its expertise in cyber intelligence and electronic warfare, this elite unit had been involved in some of the most sophisticated espionage missions in modern history. But this time, their mission was different. The target? Hezbollah's seemingly untraceable communication network. The weapon? Not bombs, not drones, but pagers. Israel knew that to turn Hezbollah's own technology against them, they needed to get to the source. And that's where their plan took an unexpected turn. Instead of launching a direct attack, Unit 8200 infiltrated the global pager supply chain. They identified a trusted manufacturer that Hezbollah had used in the past, Gold Apollo, based in Taiwan. Now, breaking into an international company wasn't easy. Gold Apollo had no ties to Israel, and any direct contact would raise suspicions. So, Unit 8200 took a different approach. They set up a front company, disguised as a legitimate business, far from Israel's borders, in Budapest, Hungary. This shell company, named BAC Consulting, was registered in an unassuming building in Budapest's 14th district. From the outside, it looked like just another small business. But behind the scenes, this was the epicenter of Israel's plan. BAC Consulting posed as a legitimate electronics supplier, and through clever negotiation, they gained access to Gold Apollo's products, including the very pagers that would soon be in Hezbollah's hands. But Israel wasn't just interested in buying these pagers. They had a far more sinister plan. They needed to ensure that when these devices reached Hezbollah, they wouldn't just receive messages, they would detonate on command at the perfect moment. And so, the infiltration continued. The pieces were falling into place. Hezbollah, completely unaware, was about to buy pagers that had been carefully modified by one of the world's most advanced cyber warfare units. The countdown had already begun. Now that Israel had successfully infiltrated the supply chain, it was time for the next phase, turning ordinary pagers into deadly weapons. This was no easy task. Unit 8200's engineers and cyber experts had to carefully modify the devices in a way that would go undetected by both Hezbollah and the manufacturers. The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. Pagers, after all, are simple devices. They operate on radio frequencies, receiving messages, but without the complex features of modern smartphones. This made them the perfect cover for a hidden weapon. Unit 8200 devised a way to replace the internal components of the pager, specifically one of the batteries, with a tiny explosive charge. But here's where it gets even more ingenious. The pagers were fitted with a microprocessor that could be remotely activated through encrypted signals. This meant that when the time came, a simple command from Israel's intelligence network could trigger these devices simultaneously, causing mass devastation without warning. On the surface, these pagers looked just like any other. Hezbollah operatives, trusting their secure communications, had no reason to suspect that their own lifeline was being used against them. They began using these pagers to communicate sensitive information, unaware that they were carrying devices wired for destruction. Israel had turned Hezbollah's trusted technology into a weapon of mass chaos. And with each pager now acting as a remote-controlled bomb, the stage was set for what would become one of the most devastating intelligence-led attacks in recent history. With the modified pagers now in Hezbollah's hands, the operation was nearly complete. But Israel wasn't rushing to detonate them. Timing was everything. They needed to wait until the moment when Hezbollah's leadership and key operatives were all using these devices, ensuring maximum impact. The goal wasn't just to create chaos, it was to dismantle Hezbollah's command structure in one swift blow. As the weeks passed, Hezbollah continued their operations, completely unaware of the ticking time bombs in their possession. The pagers had become a part of their daily communication, trusted for their security and reliability. But for Israel, each day brought them closer to the perfect moment. Then, in mid-September 2024, Hezbollah made a bold move. Reports surfaced that they were planning a large-scale attack on Tel Aviv using explosives planted near Rakon Park. Israel's intelligence units were already monitoring the situation, and this provided them with the final piece of the puzzle. It was time to act. September 17, 2024. The day everything changed. Israel's security cabinet held a long, closed-door meeting discussing Hezbollah's increased aggression and the growing threat to Israeli civilians near the northern border. The decision was made. The operation, months in the making, was ready to be executed. Hezbollah's leadership had no idea that their entire communication network had been compromised. Their trusted pagers were no longer tools of communication, but tools of destruction, ready to be activated by a single command from Israel's Unit 8200. September 17, 2024, 3:30 p.m. Across Lebanon, Hezbollah operatives were going about their usual routines, unaware that everything was about to change. Suddenly, a message pinged through their pagers. It looked like any other command from their leaders, written in Arabic, following the same pattern they'd seen countless times before. But this time, the message was not a call to action, it was a trigger. Within seconds, pagers all across Lebanon began to vibrate and ring. Operatives, scattered in markets, homes, offices, and military posts, reached for their pagers, completely unaware of the danger they were holding. And then, without warning, detonation. One by one, the pagers exploded. Shops, markets, and homes were engulfed in chaos. Hundreds of Hezbollah operatives were caught in the blasts, but the devastation didn't stop there. Civilians in the surrounding areas were injured, and panic spread like wildfire. In the blink of an eye, the trusted communication devices became lethal weapons in the hands of their owners. The loss was immense. More than 40 people were killed, and thousands were injured. Among them was a 9-year-old girl named Fatima, who had been at home when her father's pager began to ring. As she innocently handed it to him, the device exploded, taking her life instantly. Lebanese hospitals quickly filled with the injured, and doctors worked around the clock to treat the overwhelming number of casualties. In a matter of minutes, Israel had successfully crippled a key portion of Hezbollah's leadership and infrastructure, all without setting foot inside Lebanon. The hours following the attack were filled with shock and confusion. Across Lebanon, Hezbollah's leadership scrambled to understand what had just happened. How could their secure communication system, the very network they relied on for protection, turn against them? Panic spread not only within Hezbollah, but throughout the entire region. Word of the explosions reached Beirut, where citizens began removing batteries from their phones, laptops, and any other electronic devices, fearing they too might explode. In airports, travelers were seen discarding their phones and pagers, worried about similar incidents on planes. The panic had spread beyond Hezbollah to the civilian population. But the most significant fallout was political. Hezbollah, a group that prided itself on its intelligence and operational secrecy, had been outmaneuvered in one of the most sophisticated cyber attacks the region had ever seen. Their leadership was severely weakened, and their ability to communicate had been shattered. Even their Iranian backers were left questioning how such a monumental failure could have occurred. In Israel, the operation was hailed as a massive success. Israel had managed to carry out an attack without sending a single soldier into battle. They had crippled Hezbollah's communication infrastructure and dealt a psychological blow that would last for months. But with this success came new challenges. Globally, the world watched in awe, but also in fear. The use of cyber warfare, remote-triggered devices, and sophisticated intelligence raised serious questions about the future of warfare. What other forms of everyday technology could be weaponized in this way? How many more battles would be fought without soldiers? And what would that mean for global security? For Hezbollah, this was a turning point. They could no longer trust the technology they once relied on. The secure communication network that they thought was their strongest asset had become their greatest vulnerability. And for Israel, this victory in the shadowy world of cyber warfare was just the beginning. As the dust settled in the aftermath of the pager attack, it became clear that this was no ordinary conflict. This was a glimpse into the future of warfare, where intelligence, technology, and innovation could turn something as simple as a pager into a deadly weapon. For Hezbollah, the damage went beyond the loss of operatives. Their entire communication system was now compromised, forcing them to reconsider their strategies. They quickly abandoned the use of mobile phones and pagers, resorting to older, more primitive methods of communication, handwritten letters and face-to-face meetings. But even then, the fear remained. How could they be sure that their next move wasn't already being watched? Meanwhile, Israel's Unit 8200 had demonstrated the full potential of cyber warfare. By infiltrating supply chains and leveraging the latest in technology, they had struck a blow that was both devastating and precise. And while this operation had been a success, it raised a question. What next? Could this type of warfare be used on a larger scale? And what other technologies, hiding in plain sight, could be weaponized in the future? In the international arena, governments around the world took note. Countries began to invest heavily in cyber defense, knowing that the future of warfare would be fought not just on the battlefield, but in the shadows, where every device, every network, and every piece of technology could be turned into a potential threat. For Israel, this was a victory, but it was also a warning. They had successfully dismantled Hezbollah's operations for now, but the next attack could come from anywhere, at any time. And as technology continued to evolve, so too did the risks. The pager attack of 2024 was just the beginning of a new kind of warfare, one where the line between civilian and combatant, between ordinary device and weapon, would continue to blur. The question now wasn't if this type of attack would happen again, but when. And for the world, the pager attack was a reminder. In this new age of conflict, even the smallest device could hold the power to change everything.